This Week in Fantasy returns for the playoff push, and I have a guest who isn't necessarily in pole position to make the playoffs, but always does a great job on the show, and that's Ramp. Ramp, how's it seeping?
Hey man, I'm here to play spoiler for people, but honestly, look, enough about me. We gotta talk about the number one, the cam.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Cam. Because usually in this series, about week 7, 8, I always release like an annual episode called KAMLAPSE. And that hasn't happened yet this season. Cameron's yet to collapse, but looking at his team about 7 hours before kickoff, and we can see here that despite consistent messaging on the boards, he still failed to put people in for his guys on bye week. So Aaron, I ask you, is the Cam Lap still going to come this year, despite the fact that he's in the playoff picture going into the last few weeks, something that really never happens for Cam? Is he going to fuck it up with gross incompetence? He's already put 34. Cooks basically solo carried him past Weston, and he's still at risk of screwing the pooch. So is he going to screw the pooch, or can he hit the Snickers optimize button in the next 7 hours?
He is definitely, he always runs the risk of screwing the pooch, but it is a strong possibility that 34 might carry him through this. Like if you look at what we got going Weston's side, we got Deebo Samuel who's questionable with that groin injury.
Right.
We got the running back craziness that's going on in Jacksonville. They got all those complaints about the coaching staff, the players aren't together. We got lots of problems down there. And then we got Ezekiel Elliott, who's been looked up pretty banged up, and Tony Pollard getting some big touches and big runs. It is super possible that some crazy stuff can happen, and Cam could end up beating Weston on this week. I
It's
don't want it to
definitely
be. I don't want
possible.
it to be, but on the same time, I kind of think like the storyline, and for what Weston did to me earlier this year with that 43 points on a Thursday night football, just from his freaking kicker and his defense, I think Weston deserves it.
Deserves what? To lose to Cam when Cam starts
To
half a
lose to
team?
Cam with 3 people on by, yeah.
This is just, it's absolute. I mean, a lot of people, I feel like they check their sub box Sunday morning and they're like, oh, Jesus, no TWIF. Wiley's so fucking lazy. But you gotta understand, I have to plan the show around this horse shit. Look at this. You literally wait until basically the last moment I can actually do the show and get it uploaded before the game starts, and like no one is gonna watch it. And like you see this, it happens almost every week. Cam's starting guys on bye all the way up into Sunday morning. And he's getting reminder texts from people. He's getting messages on the board. And it blows my mind that he's always the first and most strident voice against increasing the buy-in. And every fucking year it's like this. And no matter what, whether he has 2 wins and is completely screwed and is playing the guy who's in second to last, or a year like this where he could actually make the playoffs and his game has playoff implications not only for himself but others. It's just very frustrating and vexing to see, and you really got to pull your head out of your poop chute and be able to start an active roster if you're going to be the guy that acts like, oh, well, we don't need to put more money in the pool for people that care, like, and oh, by the way, like I'm perma AFK. Now, what are your thoughts on Cameron, and do you think that he's defrauded himself yet again?
Well, can you really defraud yourself when you're just a fraud in general?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. See the Texas Rangers. They've made a
Oh, I got,
fucking
I got lots of questions about that. So,
they've made a fucking living off of it. That new stadium, it's
yeah.
named after an insurance company, of course, because they never pay out their policies. But it might as well be called Fraud Central. Globe
I
Life
mean,
Field, Globe Life Park, nothing but losing going on in those stadiums. And there's nothing but losing going on these Cam teams. The guy's a disgrace.
you definitely got some points. I will say, Cameron he's a hindrance to the league in a lot of progression. For somebody who is so progressive himself, uh,
Wordplay.
he really does hinder our league's movement and like the actual ability for us to raise the level of competition in our league. Uh, I mean, Cameron's just killing me, man. Like, all you gotta do is look on there for 5 seconds, put your people in. If you have a kicker on by, get a kicker. It takes 3 seconds. It's really not hard.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's like it's like one of those things where when you're in a relationship and a girl's like, just send me a text to make sure like so I know you're alive, and you're like, nah, I can't be bothered to be doing that.
that's
It's like,
that's a
dude,
good
5 seconds,
analogy.
man.
So little effort. This is something that you can throw together on the crapper. No one is expecting Cameron to come up with these crazy dark horse long shot picks. We're just expecting him to start fucking warm bodies. And if we look at the league divisional standings here, we can see that Cam, even though Spencer is pretty much out of reach, he has Ted Lasso only a game ahead of him in the wild card right there for the picking. So this is a guy who historically going into the last 3 weeks has been dead. And it really is sort of a disgrace and spitting in the face of everyone else in the league to do this fucking year after year, week after week. Because other people actually care about this. And for Cameron, I don't even, for him, is it like an obligation? Like, how much football has Cameron watched this season? Over under 2 hours all season. That's a question. Over under 2 hours.
Yeah. I'll give you over. I bet
Oh!
he's watched at least enough Cowboys football to know what's going on.
He's been over with the commish at his house enough Sundays for like the Cowboys to be on in the living room, and he sees some games by proxy. That's what you're getting at, eh?
Yep. At least absorbing the audio,
Yeah. Well, as far as previewing this matchup, as the Cam one, I just want to hear a very linear statement come out of your mouth. Yes or no, will Cam swap these guys for warm bodies?
No, but it won't matter. He's gonna win.
Okay, I love that answer. Let's throw
Gonna bury old Weston.
You just can't get over that kicker special team game. As though nice,
It was so brutal.
as though like nice ass Weston like threw 15 mules in your face, and it wasn't just like a scheduling thing.
I just wanted an apology after that, and he had to go in there and be like, "Oh yeah, Bill Belichick had my back." Like, come on, bro.
We got Idra over here. Apologize for playing that defense. Give me a break, crap. Considering the tumultuous playoff picture, I think it would be prudent to take a look at last week's matchups to see how we got here. And we don't have to spend a terrible amount of time on these, but it is nice to sort of contextualize. So we had me off the schneid, breaking my losing streak, and really just demolishing AB here. AB put up a very respectable 96, and AB's team has been one of the lowest scoring teams in the league all season. So for him to put up 96, it's really brutal whenever you're losing, and then you put up 96 and still lose. But thankfully, these receivers that I've really been relying on, none of which are in the top 3 as far as fantasy points amongst receivers goes. Allen, McLaurin, Lockett, all floating at like 11, 12, and 14. That's been disappointing. Mike Williams has received a lion's share of the Chargers' targets. Allen has trouble finding the end zone. Fitzmagic going down week 1 has really nerfed Scary Terry's value by like 25%. And Russell Wilson going down made Lockett virtually unplayable for 6 weeks. Goddard found the end zone twice, and a big part of that was Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew, underrated quarterback. I'd give him a 6 out of 10. You think he's underrated too, don't you?
I think he should absolutely be a starter for about 4 or 5 different teams in this league.
Dak Prescott or Gardner
Instantly
Minshew?
plug and play.
You think he's better than Dak?
At this point.
Okay.
Yeah,
but he's close, right? He's around the same level?
Not yet, no.
Okay, well,
he's a second-year player. I think there's like some teams that you could definitely plug and play him like immediately. Like, I honestly think Denver would be a good spot for him to just plug and play.
Yeah.
Obviously Jacksonville, like he should have started there. Like, let me think. Obviously the Jets.
The Giants too.
Carolina.
Danny Dimes.
Giants, Carolina. Like, I mean, this guy is actually good. He's actually good, and he could be the face of a franchise. He's literally like, he's so liked. I have not met a single person that doesn't like Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, there's really nothing to dislike about him.
Like, it's like, why would you not want to put this guy in front of your team and be like, yo, make this guy up there? 'Cause everything I've heard about him, every news story I've heard about him is that this dude kills it in the locker room. He like brings the energy, brings the fun. Like everybody likes this guy and likes to be around him, likes to be a teammate of this dude.
Well,
It,
putting
it's hard to believe that he's a backup.
well, putting his personality aside for a second and looking at his fantasy value just very strictly, if you look at how he affects his offense as opposed to Jalen Hurts, he brings up every weapon's value significantly. Dallas Goedert, value goes way up. Goddard had a basically career game, season game, over
Mm-hmm.
100 yards, 2 tutties. That's a dream for a tight end. That's about as it's going to get, about as good as it's going to get. Miles Sanders, this guy had the best game of the season. He's finally getting a proper amount of rushing attempts from a proper formation. Jalen
Yep.
Hurts is brutal. This is a guy that just completely vultures touchdowns. He gets so many looks on the ground. And it becomes this really obnoxious thing where you're sitting there watching the Eagles, and unless you're Jackson McDaniel with Hurts on your team, it's just like, my God, anytime they get into the red zone, they're going to run some like dumbass RPO option where Hurts runs to the pylon or a bootleg. And as far as passing goes, Hurts really favors his buddy from Alabama, Smith, and anytime they have long explosive plays that aren't on the ground from Hurts's legs, it's usually to Smith. And vexingly, that just sort of nerfed all of the Eagles' weapons down and made them pretty much worthless. I also think that Hurts' inaccuracy problems and his lack of grit to grind and cut back inside on some runs also hurt the offense. So Philly might not be as strong without Hurts, but as far as fantasy goes, having Minshew buffs all of the Philly weapons, and I absolutely love to see that because with Minshew at the helm, they play a much more traditional style offense that's more conducive to fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't necessarily agree with everything you're saying about Jalen Hurts. Like, I think Jalen Hurts is good. I think the problem is that the people around him in Philly, they haven't fully bought into that system that they're trying to implement for Jalen Hurts. So, like, a lot of times it does look just like real goofy and like things are just not lining up at all for him. But you're definitely right about this Gardner Minshew thing. It does bring up the talent of everybody else because it's not like, hey, the quarterback's just playing favorites. He's just throwing to Devontae Smith. Like, I get it. Totally agree with you.
Right. So we can pretty much say AB's second fantasy season, even though I told a handful of people, everyone struggles their first year. He's still learning. He's going to be better next year. Started off rough, drafting a guy with a blown out knee, and really hasn't improved very much. What have you thought about AB so far in his second year?
You know, him coming out like that was such a big deal. Honestly, it really did. Like his whole season got screwed over, and I don't know, like kind of like how last year with COVID and all the craziness, like, and a little bit this year too. I don't really think you can evaluate owner's skill by these past 2 years, by
Okay.
this year and last
So
year.
you're giving him a pass.
I'm giving everybody a pass other than Cameron.
And this includes yourself, obviously.
I've had a fucking terrible year, brother.
I see, I see. So are these two things correlated, Aaron? You're like, yeah,
Oh no.
I've a couple rough years in a row. I just throw those right the fuck out. We need to get No Fried back in my division. Get a
Yeah,
like I
that's
saw
what
No
it is.
Fried saying that like, wow, my division's so tough. Meanwhile he's got Cameron in it, starting fucking guys on bye and guys with blown out knees for like multiple
And still
weeks in a
has
row.
still has a winning record
He's like, this is the
as
best.
opposed to you and I.
He squints at it and he's like, this has to be the hardest division. I've got Spencer, who's actually good, and Christian, who talks the most, and Cameron, who talks the least. Man, I miss being able to beat Aaron twice a year.
True.
But anyway,
True.
this is AB put down again by me, easy, and it's nice to get a dub because my team was in total freefall. And here we have an absolute masterclass by you in a game that I literally had to have because if you're not aware, my path to the playoffs, wild card, not fucking really being much of an option considering the records of the other teams. essentially Ben has got to lose this week to AB. I've got to beat you this week, and then I've got to beat Ben in the head-to-head, and that won't matter as far as tiebreakers go because we'll both be 7-7 at that point. So this was a very crucial step, these two games that happened last week, to make these last couple weeks interesting. And the thing that jumps out to me about this game is Herbert's performance. Herbert is a guy who's top 5 fantasy point rank among quarterbacks. Very sharp as far as second year guys go. I think he has a lot of room to grow and improve, but the Chargers are this sloppy Joe team, and I think they're pretty unpredictable. The other couple things, Jefferson had an absolutely monstrous day, and you started Madison, who I rostered all fucking year to drop when I had a bunch of bye weeks, and of course you're always top waiver priority and get him. So those were the things that jumped out at me, although your team performed very well as a whole, obviously putting up 124. So I kind of want to hear your thoughts on the Chargers first, and then about this fantasy matchup.
The Chargers are absolute train wreck, man. Like, they go into Cincinnati and they just blow Cincinnati's doors off. Now, this next week, they are playing at home against New York Giants. There's no, like, I have no doubt in my mind that somehow they're gonna blow this. And it's like, I don't understand how the Chargers are just like this consistently, like, for the past 5 years. Like, just really, really high-powered offense, like, have a decent defense, and just blow games in the fourth quarter. It's hard to watch. But I honestly, like, I'm hoping that that Herbert just walks in there and just says, enough with this bullshit. We're going to just put the Giants in their fucking graves like they deserve to be, and we're going to score a shit ton of points. Like, other than that, I don't know, man. The Chargers are hard to watch, especially for somebody who I think is actually a solid football team and a playoff contender.
Yeah, it does seem like they're wasting their talent, and bad coaching has a lot to do with it. The Chargers are a sloppy team. We're talking false starts at home, fucking moronic illegal formation penalties, sloppy personal fouls from established vets like Keenan Allen. This is a team where it looks like the players just don't really give a shit about the coaching staff and aren't really scared of them or held accountable in any way. And I think that's
Yeah, they got a real bro coach.
yeah, he's like he's like a player's coach,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where it can only work in certain locker rooms. I also think that in general the Chargers are never going to be a playoff threat until they fix their coaching problems. Even if they make the playoffs this year, they're not going to win a game, even though I think the AFC is way weaker than the NFC.
Oh, horribly weaker, yeah.
And
One thing about also the Chargers, like, you got to remember what division they're in, right? They have to overcome the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Broncos every year, and like all three of those teams, or all four of those teams rather, I'm pretty sure are all tied in the records right now.
they're all around.
If they're not, they're all one game away.
They're basically all around like 7-6 or 6-7. It was like that a couple weeks ago. The Chiefs are starting to run away with it as Vegas and Denver falter badly, but I see the point that you're making. It's a pretty tight, solid division. I do, however, think that the Broncos, after starting out 3-0, were laughably overrated, and Vegas, after firing Gruden, like really went to shit and sort of lost their identity and has looked terribly disjointed. So
Yeah, other than the time when they had the refs like in their back pocket throwing 37 flags or whatever it was.
yeah, so then that leaves the Chargers, who we just spoke at length about not trusting, and for good reason. And the Chiefs have looked off this year. So I think in general that division isn't like as strong as a lot of people think, but this season has sort of played out a little bit weird, especially with Mahomes turning the ball over so much, and it's made that division more congested and made it appear a little more competitive than it truly is. Remember after 3 weeks when people were pretending the Broncos were a playoff team? That was so ridiculous.
Well, definitely agree, but it's still possible they make the playoffs. So
Fair enough.
hard to say.
All right, so you get a solid win against Ben to keep things interesting.
Yeah,
Lil-
man, I'm in one of those situations, where they put the little percentage up on the screen. I'm in that like 1% category where like you gotta lose. I gotta beat you this week. You gotta lose next week, and then Ben has to lose like 2 weeks in a row for me to even have a chance of getting in.
well, that'll be difficult considering that I play Ben and you need us both to lose
Oof.
in the last week.
Who do I play in the last week then? What? I thought I had a divisional rivalry.
Well, it used to
Oh,
be.
I get to play AB again. Awesome.
Yeah, that is nice. So to quick wrap up some of the other games, Lily puts up less than 50 and gets destroyed. Weston, let's see.
Well, I guess if I beat you this week and you play Ben next week, then it comes down to the tiebreaker on us.
As far as Weston's game goes, really this was a case of Adam Thielen getting hurt and putting up a goose egg and James Robinson not being used. You spoke about Jacksonville earlier in the controversy. Basically, one of the receivers was bitching at Mr. Lapdance, Urban Meyer, and crying. Like Urban Meyer was airing out the receivers, probably for being crybaby divas, and like one of them stormed out of the facility and then came back to scream some more. And like Robinson not being used enough was at the heart of the fucking conflict. That poor Trevor
Yeah.
Lawrence, like, he's only lost 7 times in his life, even at tic-tac-toe and foursquare, fucking 2-10 now. Just like the game looking like it's so fast for him. You gotta feel for the guy. But this was a big loss for Weston, a guy who's a perennial threat, and it put Ted Lasso right behind Spencer in that little division.
Yeah, right behind Spencer and number two on the entire league.
True. And
I
Jackson,
mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say it's hard to say that Cam can even make it into the playoffs because of Ted Lasso. But there's still that minuscule possibility.
true.
And I mean, Mark has done pretty decently this year. I gotta say, like his team's been very strong. And after I said, "Hey, Mark's a good owner," and y'all lambasted me for it, I'm feeling pretty good about my statement.
I bet you're feeling yourself. I remember one thing that you said on draft night where it looked like Lily was going to take Najee Harris and you were like, "No, no, no, Lily, don't fall into the Najee Harris trap. You're too good for that." Meanwhile, the guy's top 5 ranked among running backs this season. And what's also funny is like Cooper Kupp, who was always like a low A tier guy, has been absolute S class, best in the league. And if Kelsey's been Kelsey, like I don't look at this team and think like, wow, No Fried's done such a great job. Like Henderson's been fucking not like phenomenal, but very solid all year. Has had some
Yeah.
pop off games, and essentially like he's not ranked top 15, but he's missed a couple weeks that sort of nerfed down his average. But yeah, this is not like, to me, I don't look at this team and think that it's like scary or god tier. I think that like he got lucky on Harris and lucky on Cup, and he's netted like at least 3 wins out of it. But it's a solid little team. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing well with it.
Spencer took
He's
down.
made it to 8-5. He's one of the few people that is actually doing super well with it. So
True.
it's hard to say.
Spencer took down Jackson in this very important game. Spencer really didn't want to have to go into a tie with Ted Lasso. Anytime you have the best record in the league, it's very important to maintain that, stay in the driver's seat, and basically ensure that you play the wild card team. But if we look at this little matchup, Spencer picked up and started Michael Gallup because of the Cooper injury. And what else jumps out to you about this matchup? This one was a pretty tepid, sort of low-scoring affair. A lot of guys get under 10. Do you want to mention anything about this before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at Jackson's team, man. He's in like free fall, man. He had to start a Jets player. He's got a New England wide receiver that's not named like Wes Welker. That it's not good for him right now. With Cordell Patterson not scoring like 35 points, like Jackson really doesn't have a chance.
This was one of the worst injury-ravaged teams I've seen in like recent fantasy history. Jackson's done a great job of keeping up on the waiver wire, but his team has just been brutalized by injuries all season long.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, totally. Like I've been kind of keeping a little bit of track of it, but man, it's been rough for him. Like he has basically no starting wide receiver at this point. Like other than I guess he has DK. DK, I didn't see him down there. But even DK is like playing so terribly.
Well, the Seahawks,
Hard to say.
you got to remember the Seahawks are 3-8 at one point this
Oh,
season.
they're terrible, bro. They're terrible.
They're way worse than a lot of people thought they would be, for sure. And then finally in this game, Seagouch was able to type something on the boards other than whinging because Murray came back and just solo carried him through the game. And even though Jonathan Taylor is literally like 65 points higher than the next fantasy running back and has been like one of the most insane hard carries in recent memory, the commish just has too many holes. Cooper was coming off that injury and looked pretty ineffective, truth be told. Kyle Pitts is super hit or miss. Mike Evans is on a team where he's not the main guy anymore as far as, oh, we're in the red zone, this is our funnel. Still a very solid player, but with Gronk on that team, with the better running game, that of course, like any Brady offense, it gets spread out quite a bit, even though him and Gronk are obviously trying to break that record. And a cute little start of the Colts here against terrible Houston, but it wasn't enough to make up. And Seagouch gets a win that basically kept him in the playoff race.
Yeah, I really thought Clapper Bacon would have like this would be his year, honestly. Like with the team that he has, Patty Mahomes, Fournette, Taylor, Evans, like all of these names are just huge names, big guys are here. And if he makes it to the playoffs, it's scary. It's scary to think of like what he actually can accomplish in the playoffs. That's gonna be a scary team. Like when the playoffs come around, and if Clapper's in there, which it looks like he could pull it out here. He's tied with Weston right now. Um, you know, he doesn't have the point advantage, but like I already predicted earlier, I think Weston might lose this week to Cameron. So if Clapthorne makes it in there, he would be somebody that I would be looking out to beat maybe Spencer.
I
Maybe
think
pull a big upset up.
what's great is just like last year, a lot of these divisions are coming down to the wire. I think it's really awful in fantasy when you're looking at the divisions at the end and like two teams have been dead since week 6 and it's very obvious who's going to win. All these divisions are super tight. We see the My Ball Zach Ertz division, two teams tied at 7-6, Weston the commish, and then Jackson's right there terrifyingly at 6-7. He can make some noise. And
Yep.
Lily's eliminated. And then if we look at the King's Landing division, Spencer controls his own destiny, is in the driver's seat. But you were saying that No Fried, Mark, Ted Lasso, whatever the fuck you want to call him, like we busted his balls and he changed his name to some like really corny TV show reference. Like just fucking go back to No Fried for Christ's sake.
Hey, I mean, at least he changed it, bro.
And then we have Seagouch, who is only really leading this season in self-pity board post, and Cameron, who we spoke at length about. And it's just sort of that is like such a weird division. If I didn't have so much faith in Spencer, that would be the most entertaining one. But it's like, I know Spencer's going to do the right thing, and I know Cameron's going to like do the wrong thing. And Mark is probably going to win the wild card just because he's a game up. And I think Seagouch is a threat because he drafted boomer bust guys. And just like always, if they get hurt, he's going to be awful and cry. Just like he was for those middle weeks when his guys went down. And then when they come back, like they're going to have pop-off weeks. And it's like, oh, things are returned to normal. Like I love it. I love it when Seagouch drafts like all these high like boomer bust injury prone guys. And when they get injured or have bust years or bust weeks, it's like lightning came down and hit the towering gouch. And it was like all RNG. Then when they have the pop-off games, it's like, I'm a genius for drafting these high-risk players. Then you see Seagouch's final finishes in this league, and that's why it's either like 2nd or 11th, because he just stacks his teams with these guys every year.
It's so funny because you look back at last year and you realize his team wasn't like that. It wasn't like huge, bigger boomer bust guys, and he ended up winning. Like it's crazy when you look at it like that.
Well, who were some of the guys on his team last year that you like to point out?
I don't remember his team from last year, but I just remember I remember having this exact conversation about it. Like, oh yeah, Seagouch is a boomer bust picker, and then like last year we were talking
Well,
about like
last year,
Seagouch has really improved his
last
picking and
not
stuff.
really. Like last year, he solo won because AB was a drunk cretin and gave him Aaron Rodgers. Like that's why he won last season. That's really what
That's
it comes
also
down
fair too.
to.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was fair.
Yeah. So you can slight AB now if you want, who has the least amount of points scored and the worst record.
Hey man, I'm close down there with those points scored. Don't worry.
Yeah, you got a glass houses situation over there, don't you, Ramp?
Hey, oh my God, Lily's only 5 points away.
Yeah, but
That's
like
actually crazy.
anyway, we can move on to this week's
Yeah, let's go this
matchups.
week.
All right, we have me and you, and I just love so much that you gargled my Madison drippings. Of course, you're right there to take him from me. The one fucking week Dalvin Cook gets hurt, you beat Ben with him, which I loved, and then he was shit against me. Aaron, this is fucking karma coming home to roost. This is everything that should have happened. I like it. Literally, it would have been the more beneficial for Ben if I had kept him and fucking started him when he popped off. Like, it weirdly worked out in the most perfect way for me. Assuming Cook
Uh,
plays the rest of the year.
you just, I'm happy for you, but I'm very upset that Cook came back from his potential season ending injury, like 1 week later. Like, what in the hell, man?
Yeah, I haven't seen a recovery that miraculous since Ryan put aspirin into Michael Scott's pudding when he burned his foot in the injury. I mean, he was right back like you wouldn't believe.
I haven't seen one since Carson Wentz's foot. Like this, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on in the NFL, but the fact that Cook came back this week and scored 34 freaking points, oh, it hurt. It hurt my soul. It hurt my soul almost as much as watching that KJ Osborne touchdown.
Well, that was a cute little pickup by me because Adam Thielen went down and
Yeah,
Osborne was the number 2 receiver, and him and Jefferson sort of neutralized each other, both scoring about 14. But you've got to love your
yeah,
Justin Jefferson pick. He's the number 2 ranked wide receiver this season. He's been a solid little option for you, and that's considering the fact that there were some situations earlier in the year where he was right on the goal line and didn't get the touchdown, so he could very easily be like right up there with Cooper Kupp. He's been the star of your team so far, especially with Aaron Jones fading in favor of A.J. Dillon down the stretch.
yeah. I mean, I honestly think going back to the draft that I made a good choice in my wide receivers. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's had a few weeks of injury and like just some weird shit going on, COVID and all that kind of stuff. But I think both of them have been solid all year, basically. And the Justin Jefferson pick, I'm like really happy with myself about.
Yep, and it's been solid for you all year. So what are your win conditions for this week, considering you're already down a decent amount?
Well, I'm down one player, but I think that I have some things to look into here, which is like Sony Michel's going against the Arizona defense, and Matt Stafford's going against the Arizona defense. Like you got a couple of eggs in that basket that I'm thinking that Arizona will come away with a win here on that because the Rams have just not looked on point yet. I mean, they had a free game last week with Jacksonville, but I think this week they're going to have a little bit of trouble against Arizona. And
That's
then you have good old Saquon, who
has
I
been
don't know why
wretched.
you drafted this guy. I
Well, when
I
you're
look
when
back
you're
on the
sitting
draft
when
and
you're
I
sitting
think
there in
about
the
some of
mid
the things that I was
first.
saying. I was sitting back and thinking about the things that I was saying it during the draft, and I just thought, like, man, I was right about a lot of shit.
If only you could have instilled that knowledge into your own roster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, we were back to back in the draft, right?
We were both around the middle.
Yeah, we had some shitty ass draft position, but
Yeah,
yeah,
when you get 6 or 7, it's so shit because all the top tier backs are gone, and you're left with like the dripping backs or reaching for a receiver. It's just such a bad spot.
Yeah. I think so. I think honestly, like I'm feeling pretty good about your top three, not outscoring my top two that are going to go out, and I'm feeling pretty good about McLaurin having a tough day against Dallas defense. Dallas defense ranked number two in fantasy points, like fucking interception machines over there.
Diggs
Uh,
mostly.
although, although I do think that Washington is better than they kind of like appear to be. I think their biggest weakness in terms of Washington is their red zone offense because they control, they dominate time of possession. Like they're like 65-35 in most games that they play, even when the games they lose. And their problem is they just can't put up the points. So I'm hoping that keeps that like carries over to this week, and the Dallas doesn't just shit the bed. But I think that's my win condition basically is just Dallas doing well, Washington doing badly, and then the Rams kind of having a tough day against Arizona.
Yeah, I think your point about the Rams is a really intelligent one. I think if Arizona crushes the Rams have struggled with really good competition this year a bit. And if they come
Mm-hmm.
out and lay an egg, that could really cut down what should be like 40 combined points from Stafford and Michelle because Henderson isn't playing. And Michelle has
Yeah.
shown whenever Henderson doesn't play, he's more than capable of putting up big numbers. Now, I had some decisions to make in terms of who I was going to start, and it's somewhat interesting because Barkley's been wretched and the Giants' offense is anemic, and I was very seriously considering benching him. And I was sort of in a position where I thankfully locked in Osborne for a droopy 15, which is huge because if you look at my bench here, Philly on bye, I've got some holes to fill. Allen has COVID, OB Joke is OB Joke. Williams doesn't really get many touches with Hilaire, and then Foreman is in a timeshare, so it doesn't look good, and I really wanted to lock in a guy that I knew would be on the field quite a bit, and that's why I elected to start Osborne on Thursday, because having that locked in would make my Sunday decisions easier. You know how if you got guys starting on Thursday and you bench all of them and then suddenly you get some injuries or bye weeks are coming at you fast on Sunday, it's sort of like, shit, I'm like out of options because who I really should have put in started on Thursday. So I'm glad that I locked that in, and even more happy that Osborne had that long touchdown, which was the defining play of our game, I think, especially if I win. So I was sort of looking at this like maybe OBJ, maybe I bench Barkley and get cute, but ultimately I think Barkley's going to get a lot of looks. I think he'll probably get 8, and hopefully Zach Ertz has a big game. And overall, obviously this is a must-win game for me in a literal sense. This is one of those where I don't feel that confident going in just because a lot of the matchups, like LA versus Arizona, really scares me. Like, could it be like that one God tier game where it's like a 35-48 shootout? I sure hope so. But the Rams have looked more inconsistent this year than they have in the last couple years.
Yeah, it's been crazy watching the Rams because they have literally like a super team.
Yeah, they just
So to
they've
say,
traded like 3 years worth of picks for a bunch of existing all-stars.
fuck them picks.
Yeah, fuck
But
'em.
it's crazy to me. Like they should honestly be out there blowing out teams. But it's exciting though. It is exciting to watch the entirety of the NFC West play out. Because man, there was a lot of hype going into the year for them. In terms of like the Rams and the Cardinals. People weren't putting the Cardinals as high as they should have been. But
Absolutely
man,
agreed.
it's so fun to watch now. And I enjoy watching the Cardinals, man. Watching Kyler Murray like running around, dude. It's funny because it's like imagine if you had him and Tyreek Hill on the team. Like I wonder who's actually like quicker out of the two of those guys. Like they're both so fast, like from a standstill to moving. It is actually insane how fast they just like start. Like
Yeah,
they may not be the fastest guys like overall. Like once some of these dudes get running, like they are like uncatchable. But like those two, like as soon as they start, you can't catch them.
I think Hill is the gold
It's so
standard
fun to
for
watch.
speed. I would think I would have to edge Hill there, but this is
I would love to watch like a 20-yard dash, like a just those two next to each other, like 20 yards. That's it.
I think
and see
that
how it was.
I think like this bottom side of your team is a little concerning. Like Carson, the kicker for Vegas, is actually pretty highly ranked because they peter out in the red zone, not because they're a high-powered offense. There's like sort of two different kind of
Yeah.
fantasy kickers. There's kicker, and we see like the story perfectly told in this
Yeah,
matchup, this
right
mirror.
here.
There is the kicker on the really good offense that gets a lot of extra points, and the kicker on like the decent offense that gets a lot of field goal points because they can't fucking get it in the end zone. And that this game will be fun to watch, and I'm going to definitely be rooting for some Chiefs drives, like stalling out around the 25-yard line. You know what I mean? And it's going to be
Yeah,
vex.
I
It's
am. I'm gonna rooting
yeah,
for some Vegas drives to just
yeah,
all
and
out.
I think more of those are going to hit than fucking the Chiefs stalling out. I think Vegas is dead in the water. I don't have any faith in them at all. If you're a bettor, bet against Vegas. This is a team in stunning free fall. That I think this is one of those years where Vegas gets to the end of the year and they're just like, all right, we got to rebuild. Like we got to get a new coach. We got to try to like move on from the Gruden era in some way. Like more in like
Yep.
a mental like finality. Like we got to start fresh because they've gotten worse week after week after week. And even though like their losing didn't start right when he got fired, you can tell that they've sort of lost their identity since then. I also like really detest this idea that Derek Carr is elite. I think he's good, maybe even very good, like a 6.5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 guy. If you had to rate Derek Carr on a scale from 1 to 10, what would it be, Ramp?
Probably like a 7.5 or 8. Like the man is hard carrying that entire team. He's literally
Josh
doing it by
Jacobs.
himself.
Josh Jacobs is pretty good.
Pretty good, but like here's the thing: you got to look at like what's going on in Oakland or Las Vegas actually, and you got to see that Darren Waller's out. They lost Henry Ruggs. They've lost so many different things, and somehow like Derek Carr is still putting up points each week. He's still like they're actually still scoring a lot. Like it's kind of amazing how well their offense is doing for how like banged up and how many different things have gone against them. I mean, I think that all is just credited to Derek Carr.
That's a good point. He has picked up a lot of the proverbial slack. So can we get a point prediction from this one, please?
I'm gonna crush you
By how many?
by like 3 points,
Okay. I'm going to
like
give my
95, 93.
That's about where I'm at with it. We're going Rocker 97, Rampy 88. And I really fucking need this one. Like, I just hope, regardless of what happens next week, I just hope to fucking God that I win this one for the sake of the show. And unfortunately, AB is so incompetent, he's going to, like, fuck up my action. Here, like, Debbie Down syndrome is fucking starting an out guy. And if we look at his bench, he's got basically Booker and no one else. So does it really matter if he swaps the guy out? Booker wasn't even really that good whenever the Giants had their quarterback and Booker was starting. So obviously, hopefully he puts the warm body in and doesn't pull a Cam joke. But this is a team that does not impress me at all. Like, what do you think about Austin's team, and what do you think it says about him as a manager?
Ben and I always, we always taking shots at each other about who doesn't care, right?
Right.
Austin doesn't care. I
Oh!
know because I tried to send him a trade 3 weeks ago, and he hasn't even looked at it.
Really?
It's still there.
Page right out of the Cam playbook.
Still acceptable. Would have liked it for this week. Would have been helpful. Dickhead.
Not even a counter offer?
No, nothing. Not even a reject. Nothing.
Or a flaming counter offer with a nasty message.
Yeah, unfortunately for both you and I, unless something crazy happens, Ben's going to win this and win our division.
And what a shame that would be.
Yeah, I mean, terribly shameful, honestly. I just want to say something about Ben.
Let's hear it.
Ben has said a lot of things this year.
Uh-huh.
A lot of things about how I don't care. And, how it looks like I'm just not, my mind's not in it anymore.
Right.
And it's been tough. I live on the other side of the world. I still have better internet than Ben. He lives in America with a one up, one down connection. That's fine, no big deal. But Ben, I kicked your ass last week. What do you have to say? I know you ain't got nothing to say on Discord because I sent the message 3 times.
I love it. I love the
I hope
banter.
you lose to Austin. And
Considering
we get another like a rematch of the hotel scene.
considering with considering how drunk and incompetent AB is, that's like a real big like middle finger right in Ben's face saying like, I hope you lose to AB. That's like that Don LaGreca rant when the guy calls in and he goes, let's go with the numbers, Matt Forte. And LaGreca goes, Matt Forte? I hope he doesn't play! I hope he doesn't play! That's like what you're fucking saying is like, hope you lose to AB. Like, that's like the fantasy equivalent to saying, hope you get fucking AIDS and die. Hope you lose to AB. Like, just fuck you. And it's like, it's not just like, oh, for the implications of the division and I want to, the Wiley Live going to last week. No, it's like, you just threw 15 mules in Ben's face and typed like F you in the chat. Like it's like I hope you lose to Austin. It's like, why? For the division? No, because I want to see you fucking humiliated and ruined. So, some pretty big shots there. Aaron, not really a vulgar guy, but he packed a lot of gusto in a seemingly innocuous statement. If you had to give a prediction here, a legit prediction, and just assume that Booker plays instead of Swift, because AB will arise from his drunken stupor between now and noon and check his sub box and see this. So assume Booker plays and queefs out 5 or however the many fuck you want to give him. Is AB going to win? Does he have a chance?
Ben, you're going down. Actually,
Oh.
really not. AB's going to lose.
Damn.
It's going to be unfortunate.
You know what I'm predicting? A George Kittle pop-off game. I think Kittle's going to go big. Give me 15 for Kittle.
I don't want to predict that because I'm pretty sure he popped off last week.
He did. It was against me. He almost solo carried. He had fucking like 30. Yeah, look at that.
30
Literally
points,
30.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't think it's going to happen again, but, hey, here's the hoping.
Here's the hope.
We put our hope together. We can do this.
Yeah, it'll be like the fucking spirit bomb scene. You and me with our hands in the air from all different sides of the world rooting against the king of funny. I'm going to give this one to Ben, though, 92 to 85.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that Lamar Jackson has a huge day. I think Mixon continues to get a lot of work. And I think those two guys have sort of anchored Ben's team. Then you put like the Tyreek Hill like ceiling. The James Conner is a guy who is really explosive and gets out in the open field a lot with all those offensive options. And Gronk is very clearly like trying to get that record with Brady for like combo, like receiver and quarterback fucking passing to a specific receiver touchdown record. I have not been particularly articulate tonight. You can definitely tell it's a 5:30 a.m. recording. But obviously Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison have that record and Brady and Gronk want that shit. So I hope they fucking get there. I think it'll take one more season, but Gronk doesn't practice anyway. He like shows up at the facility at noon like still buzzed. Like they don't even make him practice or wear fucking pads.
Yeah, Gronk doesn't even watch film, apparently.
Yeah,
Did you hear that report?
That
was one of the craziest things I've ever heard.
Well, like, you know what happens? Like, they're like rolling the reel-to-reel of the film and the coach is talking and, like, there's, like, this weird haze, like, on the film. Like, what the fuck is that? It's like Gronk smoking, like, a 4-gram blunt, like, right beneath the projector, like, chiefing the shit out of this like cigar-sized blunt and like drinking a beer and just like disrespectfully talking through the meeting with Tom. And they're like Gronk, can you move that to the other side? And he just like leaves wordlessly and goes home. Like Gronk is basically like treated like a fucking player's coach at this point. Like he's Pete Rose in '88. This guy shows up and he plays. That's like the football dream. Like you had all those slapdick coaches tell you just expect to show up to the game and never practice and play. Gronk is like, yes, I motherfucking do, and I will. This guy, he's a true American inspiration just based off of his fucking work ethic and what he has to do in his day to day. That's like everyone's dream. Like, no drudgery, no bullshit. I just like show up with my best friend and am god tier for 3 hours and make millions. That's like
Here,
Spencer when he goes to Vegas.
here's a legit question for you.
Yes,
Is Gronk the best tight end of all time?
I would say so. You have Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates are right there, but Gronk, to me, he's one of these guys that you have to put on the upper echelon just because he's one of like the handful of offensive players that you have in the NFL season by season where defensive coordinators circle him and are like, all right, this is the guy who like is a matchup nightmare and like we're going to try to stop, but it's like there's no guy on your practice team that you can like put the special jersey on and emulate Gronk. He's a fucking nightmare. And another
You
great
gotta call it like LeBron James.
Yeah.
To do it, man. He's like the only person that's the same size.
Another thing about Gronk too you have to consider is like he doesn't really have like down years. Like if you think about like anytime Gronk has been bad or downhill, it's injury related. And like
Yep.
that's a big thing too is anytime he plays, he's elite. And the only times that he's not elite is when he's been fucking hurt. So considering the offensive weapon factor, like you do have to nod to Gonzalez and Gates and give them their respect, but absolutely, I think Gronk is the most lethal tight end ever because he's just an absolute nightmare to game plan for, a matchup nightmare, and I think in general, I think if you want to like give points for charisma or marketability, even if it's just a little sprinkling of points, just like 5% of the equation, he's like off the charts on both of those. So
Oh yeah.
I love Gronk, and I love that it's like Brady to Gronk, and like that they're almost
Oh
like
yeah.
a dynamic duo like that is points in his favor, and he came out of like injury-induced retirement to be with Brady, win a ring, and be god tier. I mean, it's like Gronk is like living the dream, not just because he's in the NFL, but everything he does is just so like fuck you, I'm gonna have like a beer now, and like that's pretty much his mo. That and catching all the touchdowns. Like you have gotta love Gronk. Gronk is like Gronk is like a frat boy, and basically he got dropped into the NFL and was just like still being a bro like 15 years later. Love him.
It's so crazy to me. I was actually looking up like the New England Patriots like rosters throughout the years. I honestly thought Gronk was older than he is. He's really not that old.
Yeah, you have to
I can't
consider.
remember the exact age he was born.
Well, you have to consider in the NFL that the skill position guys age out quicker than a lot of other like sports athletes in terms of, you know, like a guy playing first base is going to be able to last longer than a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, and that's also like an interesting thing to say to talk about is something that like is really makes the NFL in itself more interesting. Is that when you're scheming against these offenses and defenses, right? Like defensive backs are typically smaller, faster guys that have like good quickness, good hands, good jump, stuff like that. Well, then you put those guys against the people that are on the offensive side of things that are the exact same people, the wide receivers. Well, the thing that gets hard is when you have these huge dudes like Gronk running out and catching passes, like lineman-sized dudes catching passes, and it's like how on earth does a DB take this guy down? And that's why you see so many injuries in the tight end position. Like you see so many guys that just get banged up because they're in every play, they're blocking on some plays, and they're out there and they constantly have to get their knees taken out to do anything.
Right.
That was
That's
something like
how.
I always respected about like Jason Witten, and like I understood what he would do, is because he would go out there and he would catch a ball and he wouldn't even like half the time he wouldn't even try to run. Like when he got a little bit older, he would just like catch it and then sit down. Like basically, like hey, I'm gonna go to the first down yard. I'm just gonna catch the ball. I'm gonna sit down. We're gonna get this first down. We're gonna go to the next play.
Yeah. To
Like yeah, when he was younger, he would do stuff like the one where his helmet came off and stuff like that. But
Right, and to your point, when Gronk blew his knee out, he was like he caught a seam route, and the safety just like went and hit him low. You know, like
yep,
he,
yeah,
he's when you were talking about mismatches and the sort of builds of the players. The DBs are too short to guard him, but they're fast enough. The linebackers might be tall enough and physical, but they're not fast enough. And then the safeties can't fucking tackle him. So that's part of why he's such a mismatch and just a fucking nightmare for defensive coordinators. But I think we have sufficiently sang the praises of Gronk, and we can move on.
Yeah. I hope you lose, Ben.
As do I, but not for the same reasons. All right, here we got Jackson forced to start Taysom Hill, who was absolutely abominable last week. And he has Chuba Hubbard, who, of course, is replacing the out-for-the-season McCaffrey. Can you believe the Panthers were 3-0 at one point? They look like a fucking bottom six team in the league. They're pretty much only better than the laughingstock teams, the Panthers. Like, it's just fucking been so sad to watch. But what are some things
Did the Panthers lose to the Jets?
When?
I could be misremembering. I thought it was recently. Let me see. I don't know, man, but the Panthers have to look terrible.
No, they beat the Jets. That was in week 1.
Oh, week 1. Why did I think they played recently? Okay. Maybe I think it's somebody else. I don't know.
Well, because the Panthers have been losing to fucking everyone and their mothers after the first 3 weeks. Like, they got embarrassed by the fucking Cowboys. Like, you might be thinking of the Eagles who beat the Jets last week, but yeah, the Panthers have been just immensely disappointing week after week. When J.C. Horn and McCaffrey went down after week 3, they entered stunning free fall. And it's very, very interesting to look back. You know, if you are a guy who likes to DVR stuff on cable and you like to DVR sports shows, or, you know, obviously we have the internet and you can go back and watch old VODs. Go back and watch old VODs of like Monday morning after week 3 when people were saying that Sam Darnold is a completely changed quarterback. The only reason that he was bad in New York is because of Gase and like the New York situation he was in. Oh, Sam Darnold all of a sudden looking like he can be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And some people were even going as far as to say like, oh, look how high his potential is essentially limitless because Matt Rule's so smart and he was being held back. Like, who knows how great he can be? And my God, like as soon as McCaffrey got hurt, he turned right the fuck back into Sam Darnold. Like straight up Jets seeing ghosts, like shit for brains Sam Darnold. It's just so bizarre. Like I don't know what to fucking think of this guy. They're doing the Cam Newton show. They had Walker, the old XFL guy, in there for a hot minute. Like, you know, I fucking hate Cam Newton. That was just like a blatant white flag for the season. We're going to bring Cam back. Remember 2015 when he didn't try in the Super Bowl? That was heckin' great. That MVP sure means a lot with no Super Bowl ring. Yeah, I'm so glad to have Cam back. Not. Fucking hate Cam Newton, but Jesus Christ, you're getting me all lathered up here talking about my terrible Panthers. And it's one of those things, it's a lot like cheering for the Rangers where it's like you see the free fall start at, like, remember, the Rangers were fucking 17-17 at one point and were a fucking in the wild card spot at one point this season. Like 17-17, who cares? Well, that's like being 3-0 in football, and then it's like, well, this ain't gonna last. And then one little thing happens. One guy gets hurt, and it's like a fucking cascading effect. Everything goes to absolute shit. Everything just completely is torn asunder, and it has just been just atrocious to watch the Panthers this season. Although the Cowboys have been a lot better than I thought. Like, what do you think about the Cowboys this year in terms of being able to win the NFC East with Washington being 500 and Philly looking like a somewhat dangerous team?
Well, I think that actually Washington is the only one that has a chance to come back and beat the Cowboys, considering they play them twice in the next like 3 weeks. But that being said, like I said at the beginning of this year, the Cowboys are better than a 6-win team, and you guys lambasted me, told me how stupid I was. You know, I think the Cowboys are doing well. Their defense has stepped the fuck up. The offense has been around the same, kind of near where they were last year. Well, not last year, but the year before when Dak was still playing. And I think that they have a chance to play in the playoffs, and they have a chance to beat these teams. What I hope more than almost anything is that the Cowboys get to go against the stupid ass Packers, and we get some revenge for 2016.
2014, but I wholeheartedly agree.
2014, my bad.
Yeah, that was the Des
I
Cauditt
was
game for.
I was reading 2016 when I said that.
It's fine. That was the Des Cauditt game for those unfamiliar. That would be phenomenal. I'm going to throw some names at you, some team names from the NFC. I just want to hear whether they would win or lose against the Cowboys at home in this year's playoffs. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
The Rams,
Yep. Cowboys will win.
the Eagles,
Cowboys will win.
the Packers,
The Cowboys will dominate.
the Cardinals.
The Cowboys will lose.
Okay, so you think they're like the second best team in the NFC then, pretty much.
I think they're probably top 3 with the Bucks.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
what
I
about
forgot
the?
somebody.
Oh yeah, like I didn't even think you were gonna say they would beat the Bucks. They've already lost to them this year, and the Bucks gave them the game. The Bucks played
Yeah,
terrible, turned it over like 4 times, and the Cowboys still couldn't win. So I'll just ask the Bucks.
If the Bucks are healthy, they win. If the
Okay.
Bucks aren't healthy, and COVID injury or whatever, all that bullshit, Cowboys have a good chance.
I th-
I think the thing to like pull all this together is that I think the Cowboys are competitive with every team they play. There's not like teams that just like vastly outclass them.
well, to me it's hard to like find a win condition. Like Diggs gets a couple interceptions. That to me the crux of the issue is the run game. The Cowboys' run game has been not that good all season, and you know what? That goes back to Zeke Elliott because Tony Pollard has been very sharp. He's excelled, and any time he gets the ball, he runs with ferocity. He's explosive. But watching Zeke Elliott, this is a guy who very clearly signed a contract with tons of guaranteed money. The amount of times that I watch Zeke Elliott preemptively fall down on purpose, like around the line of scrimmage to avoid real contact, is disgusting. This is a guy whose entire game was predicated on hitting that fucking first guy and then driving with his legs and being a power runner. If you're a power runner that intentionally goes down before the point of first contact, you're never going to be explosive or effective. And Zeke has been neither this season. Sure, he's had a couple good fantasy games where he finds the end zone because they get to the 1 and it's like, oh, we have Zeke just line up in the heavy set and run it, LOL. But if you have been watching the games, he's not a guy that passes the eye test. And anytime Tony Pollard is implemented in the offense, the Cowboys look more explosive and scary. But to me, the line mixed with the run game, of course, the Cowboys have had some injuries to their line. That's going to be what it comes down to. I also think the defense has been solo carried by Diggs and Parsons with like a sprinkling of Van Der Esch. Diggs specifically has been god tier and like very well could win like defensive player of the year as a rookie. He's been fucking sensational, a ball hawk and a turnover machine. For a whole decade plus, the Cowboys' defense has been defined by a soft, dim-witted secondary that gives up too many big plays and doesn't get enough turnovers. Diggs has been the cure-all for this and was just an incredible fucking player to draft. In no way was his interceptions a flash in the pan or something that can't be replicated. This guy is legit. And for the first time since Darrelle Revis, we might see a true shutdown corner in the NFL. Something that, because of all the offensive favored rules, has sort of been phased out of the game in many regards. Sort of like the hard-hitting safety.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like looking at some of the other like draft picks the past couple of years that have been defensive minded, like if you look at the Raiders, for instance, they've drafted like 3 corners in the past 3 years, and every one of them is on the streets now, not even playing. The only guy that like I really wanted in terms of a cornerback on the Cowboys was Patrick Surtain II, and I'm so like it's so unfortunate that we didn't get to draft him, but at the same time, it's so fortunate that we didn't get to draft him because now we have Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons is just unbelievable. He's so good. If he doesn't win like defensive player, defensive rookie of the year, like I mean, throw the whole NFL out.
Well, they
Honestly,
can't give it to him. They've got to give it to Diggs. Diggs is
Diggs
like
isn't a rookie.
He's not?
I'm fairly certain he's a second-year player. Let me look.
Oh shit, you're right. He played in 2020. Damn. The range on
Nope.
Parsons is incredible. Like, the thing I love about Parsons is the amount that he can move laterally. This is a true sideline to sideline tackler. That's the thing that jumps out to me about Parsons.
Yeah, I mean, like the guy, when I watched the Cowboys for years, like you had Sean Lee, right? Sean Lee was the guy who was involved on every play, always hidden, always there to get the tackle, always there to do something with it, like always involved with stuff. And that is now Micah Parsons. Like Micah Parsons is that guy now, and it's so much better than what Sean Lee even was because like Micah Parsons is just so much more athletic.
Yes, he's definitely like at least a tick faster, maybe two. His range is just incredible. But okay, so personally for me, I think the Rams are favored versus the Cowboys in the playoffs. The Cardinals, the Bucks, and I think the Packers are too. Although I would just I think you're so right about the Cowboys beating the Packers and how glorious that would be. Green Bay fans are fucking insufferable, and so is Aaron Rodgers.
I hate Green Bay fans. Oh my god, I hate them.
Both Aaron Rodgers and their fan base thinks that like any time they lose it's because of the refs. Yet they're the most ref favored team in the whole NFL by far. It's so obvious the NFL that it's almost LeBron like in the way that the league so clearly wants them to advance into the deep stages of the playoffs and they get all the calls. That fucking 2014 playoff game against the Cowboys being a primary example.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers is just the luckiest human I have ever seen in my entire life. Like the man just throws prayer balls up in the air all the time, and they all work somehow.
It
I
does.
do not understand how he can be that lucky.
He is very talented too, but I know what you mean. It does seem like the Packers are just so hard to put away, and that their comeback potential is crazy. But just looking at this game overall, I think that Jackson here is in some trouble. Do you want to concur with that and give a score prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackson's gonna have a trouble, like especially with this start. Najee Harris putting up 22. I mean, that's definitely somebody I was definitely wrong about to start off with, but I just don't see like Chuba Hubbard. That name is terrible.
Agreed.
Uh, Putting up as much as Najee Harris. Like Zach Moss, Clyde Hilaire, like that could be close, but I think Buffalo is due to have a decent game, even though they're playing against Tampa Bay. I mean, honestly, if Buffalo can't beat the Bucks this week, I think Buffalo's season is over. And then, like other than that, I mean, yeah, just Jackson's just in trouble, man. Like going down the list, unless Cordell Patterson puts up, 30 or 40 points like he has been sometimes. I just don't see that's going well for him.
I don't think Buffalo's season is over if they lose, but their hopes for the division are. I think that the AFC being what it is, I think they'll still make the playoffs and they can still do pretty well. But I do see your point. Like they are sort of on this run of losing to any worth a shit team that they play and making a bunch of unforced errors. Gonna have to give this 100 to 80, no fraud.
Yeah, so it's gonna be like 100 to 85. Yeah, I agree. I think No Fire might even score more than 100.
Okay.
Maybe 105, 110, somewhere there.
Here we got Spence with his very solid team going up against Clap 4. Somehow Chase Claypool got 9.5 after embarrassing himself repeatedly on Thursday Night Football, showboating, and showing what an overrated coach Mike Tomlin is. I'll never understand like the fawning adoration for Mike Tomlin that goes obviously like, way beyond football and has everything to
Well,
do with Stephen A's favorite subject, yet he consistently has the least disciplined teams. He completely bungled the AB situation, and you have Claypool like making an ass
Le'Veon
of
Bell.
himself. Yeah, This is a guy who's supposed to be able to relate to the brothers, and he just doesn't have a fucking clue. Like this is a
Well, I'll say to maybe help you out. Like here's the thing, Mike Tomlin has not had a single losing season as the Pittsburgh Steelers coach. This might be his first one ever. He's always had Ben Roethlisberger like kind of backing him up to like give him some kind of like credibility to say he was better than he is.
It's true.
He Another thing that you gotta remember is that like in our current climate, like just look at the way he handles himself. He's a very good interview speaker, and like he keeps his calm and composure a lot, which is like um to not like to not go too far into it. It's just something that like reflects well upon himself and gives people a good impression of who he is.
You were right about them not having a losing record in Tomlin's regime. They have had 3 8-8 seasons for what that's worth.
I mean, it is worth that, but you got to remember, like, this is Pittsburgh, and like Pittsburgh is like so into football and shit. So
Right. But what do you think?
it's hard.
What do you think
I
about?
think if they have a losing season this year, I think he's gone.
What do you think about Tomlin's ability to manage his players, specifically difficult players? Like, do you think that I have a point that like he should have been able to relate to some of these guys better than he did? Because that's a lot of talent that sort of just like walked out the door. That he should have been able to like put his arm around the guy and like get him to see the light.
I would agree with you if I didn't see like the same like problematic guys like going out and doing either worse or like the same things at other places. Like since Le'Veon Bell has left Pittsburgh, has he done anything?
No, but if you look at Antonio Brown, minus that like weird blonde mustache saga, he like looks at Tom Brady like an uncle and a father figure with extreme reverence. Haven't heard a fucking peep out of him like Phil Leotardo in the fucking can. This is a guy who's been on the straight and narrow ever since he got to Tampa. And if Tom Brady can have that sort of leadership and impactability, I just don't see how one of the hardest slurped coaches in the whole NFL can be completely dismissed as far as culpability for the set of fiascos goes, because like
Well, I mean, but here's the thing. Look at the track record of AB. The only person that has kept AB in check is Tom Brady, and that's because like I think if you just look at it, like Tom Brady was like, "Hey man, you come down here, you control it for like a year, we're gonna get a Super Bowl," and you know what they did, and now he like if I'm looking at this from an outside perspective and I say, "Oh yeah, they won a Super Bowl together," well, like AB's probably gonna keep it together then, right? But I mean, even so, like you say, he has a spotless reputation, but he's just got 3 years, 3 game suspension for fake COVID card or whatever.
yeah,
So like,
but,
it's not like
he
it's
gets
not
a
like
pass
his
for
antics
that.
are gone, right? It's not like his antics are gone. Like it's just that he has Tom Brady like saying like, "Look, man, you're gonna keep it together because we're here to win football." And like Tom Brady's the only one that can do it. And like the thing is, like, just look at it. Like if I was a crazy ass dude and I was in the NFL and like I had to like look up to some people that to respect, Tom Brady would be the one, you know?
I love how
I mean, like,
yeah.
there's 2 people in the NFL that I think are the most respect. Like, you can't like not respect these 2 people, right?
Yeah.
It's Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Like, you just have to respect those 2.
I thought for sure
There is no clowning of those 2.
I thought you were for sure gonna say Dak Prescott as the other name.
Shut up. Shut up.
I love how you wouldn't go for the Minshew bait earlier. It was like the perfect Aaron question. Oh, you like Minshew? Do you like him more than Dak? Hell no. But I still love him.
I said many times last year though when the Jaguars were fucking around with having whoever that
Nick Foles.
joke of a quarterback was that was starting over Gardner Minshew while he was on the bench.
Nick Foles.
Like, the Cowboys should have paid $5 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and like, hey, give us that mullet wearing, down home Southern kid, all right, and we're gonna start him over the Red Rocket and this Garrett Gilbert faggot.
I mean, if you consider like the performance of the Red Rocket, it was just vastly underwhelming. The
I
guy.
know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's crazy, man.
All right, so do you have
All right, next one. Let's
you
go.
have okay, but you never gave your prediction for this one.
Yo,
Spencer's
I
gonna
think
win,
I
right?
actually no, I actually think that Clapper has a good chance.
Based on what?
He's got a lot of his guys back this week. He's not really like a lot of his injuries for the previous weeks have been kind of like brought back. He's got the young Tony Pollard starting. I think the only thing he doesn't have going for him is that Jonathan Taylor's on bye.
Yeah,
But I think he's got some good teammates behind him that he can work with here.
I think he's gonna solo lose off of Taylor not playing. Truth be told, I got Spencer 98 to the Commission's 82.
I think the commission can put up about 100 this week. I think Patty Mahomes is going to have a good week against Las Vegas. I think Leonard Fournette's going to run all over Buffalo because they can't stop the run apparently. Mike Evans is going to have a good day. Amari Cooper's going to have a good day. It's Kyle Pitts playing against Carolina. Like, they're going to have a good day.
Okay.
It's going to be a good time.
And
I
here,
think Spencer takes a little loss here.
all right. Here we have Lily versus Seagouch. I think it's pretty obvious Seagouch is gonna win. He already
I
has.
don't even care about this game.
Okay, just give a prediction. Then.
Seagosh wins. Like, Lily still has two Cleveland running backs. Like, it's not even worth talking about.
Well, it's not like she was gonna be able to deviate from that build order. Like
Yeah,
what
that's
was
true.
like when you commit to something that hard? Is she gonna like trade Chubb in the middle of his injury? That's like when I look at this Lily's team and the Commission's team. The thing that sticks out to me is how obvious it is that they should be trading like some of this top-heavy, top-end talent for depth. Because like you look at the Commission's team with Taylor and Fournette, two top five backs, and he's basically like has gaping holes in his team. This is
Yeah.
something that happens pretty consistently with like the Watsons, where they might have a big surplus at one position or a hard carry that they can offload for like two or three good guys to fill out their team, and they just never do it. Like they never even try to do it. Have you ever seen Lily send a trade? Have you ever seen Cam send a
Nope, never.
trade? The commish will at least dialogue with you, but like I've never gotten a trade from him, and like their teams sort of show that and falter down the stretch. So this has been a long, good episode, and I just want to get your division predictions before we go.
I think, unfortunately for us, I think Ben has a free win this week, and our division winning dreams are going to go down the toilet.
Right.
Especially since I'm going to beat you this week. So your dreams are gone, my dreams are gone, and so I think Ben's going to lock it in, even though he doesn't even care about fantasy football. I think Spencer's obviously a lock, and I think Ted Lasso is going to end up scooping up that wild card, and I think Clap for Bacon's going to take the top division.
Okay. Solid predictions. I think I'm going to have to go Weston, Spencer with Lasso at wild card, and the King of Funny. Although that is not the most entertaining outcome, and I would prefer going into the final week to be playing for that division and for Ted Lasso to have lost and for Cameron to have won. And I don't know it's such a long shot, but in any capacity to have Cam make the playoffs would just be like so funny. And like such like I've been doing this show for a fucking 10 years, and it's all about like our league and the history of the league. And every fucking year there's a KAMLAPSE episode, and he has the lowest winning percentage. He's never had a winning record, and he's never made the playoffs. How fucking hilarious would it be for a Ben Cam fucking first round playoff matchup? Would that just not fucking make your jaw hit the floor?
I would love that. I would take sides. I would change my name like I did for the Super Bowl last year. Like I would, I'm rooting for Cam, of course.
Yeah, and
Because why would I root for Ben?
it's not likely because of seeding, but there is like a hilarious world in which that Cam sneaks into the playoffs and Ben's already a favorite to make the playoffs, but that would just be one of those matchups where it's like, what would the odds in that have been at the beginning of the year, to see that?
That I couldn't even imagine. Like like those are some odds that Spencer would look at and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna bet the other side."
Yeah,
Yeah.
like let's just imagine like that would be like a sick matchup, the three twins and all that. But what really appeals to me is the idea that like Cam's never made the playoffs. Like forget the verse Ben matchup. Like let's just revel in the idea of Cam making the fucking playoffs. This is a guy who's never
Well,
had a
not even
winning
that.
record.
Not even that. Yeah, just like Cam having a winning record,
Yeah,
just to start off with. Like,
and it's funny.
why? That'd be so wild, man.
It's funny because like we talk about this and like all these situations, and it's so funny to us. But like it's gonna be like 3 o'clock, like in fucking 9 hours. It'll be 3 p.m. on football Sunday, and Cameron will at one point be like, "Oh yeah, today's Sunday," and he'll look at his team with like the three guys locked in on bye, and like that's just
I
the
just want you to
reality
know
of
that
it.
even I sent him a message on Twitter today.
I mean, like you can post on the boards, you can text him, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's so little fucking effort to do. It's like more effort for people to sit there and like ostentatiously remind him than it is for him to like see the notification on his phone and like swipe it away and not just like stop browsing Reddit for 2 seconds to like go hit optimize. Like that's the level of incompetence and laziness we're dealing with here. Is Cam just like gives that little of a shit. But oh, fucking increase the buy-in to 50 is too rich for my blood. Like if everyone else in the league cares about it more than you as far as like, well, it's not my team, but I have to fucking be up this guy's ass so he doesn't fuck it up for the rest of us. Like that means the stakes are too low. Cuz this
I
isn't
totally understand. Yeah,
this isn't a
totally
si-
agree with that.
this isn't like one of these situations where Cam is like 2-10 again and he's down and out. He has a chance to make the playoffs and get all of his money back. So like this is theoretically the or like not just his money back, but you know, do really well and have that huge windfall. And like he hasn't really done enough to like deserve to be in the spot, but he is. And like what is he doing with it? Fucking nothing. And it's just so irritating. Cause I'm sitting over here like, right, gotta wait till 6 a.m. to do the show so everyone has a chance to set their lineup. Cam's been reminded multiple times from multiple different people. Oh, and he's still AFK. Like, give me a break. That's like such a joke. Like, come on.
Yeah, I, you definitely have a point there. Before we end, I do want to have a little touch up on like kind of the standings in the NFL and how what I said that the Buffalo Bills season might be over if they lose against the Bucks here.
Yeah.
Well, in the AFC, there's you get three wild cards, right? So you have the Patriots who are going to win their division, you have the Ravens who are going to win theirs, the Titans that are going to win theirs, and the Chiefs that are going to win theirs.
Right.
You have the three wild card. I mean, obviously there's some different. There's a few games left here, but
Right. Colts, Bengals, Chargers are the three threats.
Colt, Bengals, Chargers, yeah, for sure. And then on top of that, you might even have, the Dolphins have been making a kind of a resurgence the past couple of weeks. They might come back, and they're only one game behind Buffalo.
2 games.
So,
Or a game and a half, rather.
7, 5, 6, and 7. So yeah. But I mean, just kind of like looking at it, it is possible the Buffalo Bills squander this whole season away after starting out so hot with Super Bowl favorites. Oh, they're so good, and they can't keep it together.
That's true. I mean, they've over the last 6 weeks, like it's just one shit performance after another. After looking so sharp at the beginning of the year, it is pretty sick that after last season, it sort of looked like maybe Bill Belichick was a little overrated. Maybe the Patriots were all actually about Brady, and then like, oh, now it's the Bills division for like a couple years. Maybe Belichick's even on the hot seat. No. It took less than a fucking season and a half for the Bills to be put right back in their place as the Patriots bitch. Last week,
Belichick just had to get rid of Cam, bro.
yeah, exactly. Last week, where the Pats literally like clowned them and passed it 3 times the whole game, being a perfect example. Like your classic Bill Belichick like win condition game where he like basically that Bill Belichick is like his understanding of like how to get to the finish line and just get the W is so much higher than other coaches. Like what do I mean by that? I mean that like you have guys like Sean Payton and Cliff Kingsbury who are great offensive minds and know all the cute motion sets. They do like the cutesy formations. They can make the reads. But like ultimately, like Sean McVay would have called like 30 passes in that game with 40-mile-an-hour winds. Like that,
Yep.
because Sean McVay is like a Protoss player who like has his like 50 different all-ins, and he's just gonna like do the all-ins. It's like, well, what about your opponent? That's not good against him. He's like, fuck it, I'm great at this build. Like Matt Stafford, like I have all these weapons, my micro's great. And it's just like, well, you know, Bill Belichick understands how to win with his personnel as opposed to just come up with like flashy, newfangled on meta offenses. And like you see this throughout years and years of Patriots history where he's phenomenal at not only coming up great after tough losses like the on to Cincinnati game famously, or making adjustments through the year as we saw sort of this season where they didn't look very good, and he has sort of figured out a style to make Mac Jones a more effective quarterback. So I just think it's funny, like it looked like it was finally going to be the Bills' time, and here we are fucking 11 games into the season and they're already a joke again. Or like or 13 games, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, this is week 14.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think it's fitting that the Patriots are just back on top. You know, number one team in the AFC. But I do say that like the NFC looks so much better than the AFC as a whole this year.
So you wanted to
and
talk.
It's not even close.
You wanted to talk divisions. So like, let's hear. Obviously, like we know who's gonna win the divisions, but I want to hear the 3 wild card picks. Like, will the Bills miss the playoffs? You've proven it's a possibility, but will it happen?
I think that the Bengals are a lock for a wild card playoff spot, and I think the Colts are a lock as well.
I like the
Colts. The two teams that I think are on the hot seat on it are the Chargers and the Bills.
Yeah. I think the Bills are better than the Chargers and will take that 3rd spot. I think the Chargers will have like a horrific choke game because of bad coaching down the stretch. And I do think the Bills are better than they've looked in a lot of their shitty performances. And I think the Bengals have a lot of holes and some inconsistency. I do like the Colts, though. I think the Colts will be like a legitimate playoff threat.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited. I'm so excited for this week and everything. Like I love football so much, and it's been such a problem. Like living over here in Korea, like the first game tonight or today starts at 2 a.m. my time, maybe 3 a.m. now. I'm not sure.
Well, Ramp, you've always excelled at staying up late. You've always been a night owl.
Well, yeah, but you also have to remember that it starts at 3 a.m. on a Monday. So it'll be Monday at 3 a.m. when it starts. Which becomes a little bit of a problem because the night game starts at about 9 or 10 a.m. here. So, it's like middle of the workday basically at that point.
I think the Colts are sort of like the Titans light. They have a very similar team, a run-first team with a decent defense. Don't you think they're sort of stylistically similar? With like Wentz and Tannehill are both sort of like 7 out of 10, like consistent righty quarterbacks. What do you think about this comparison?
I think that you have like a good comparison there, but I think that, like, the problem with Tannehill is not like Tannehill's not a guy that can go in and pass 30 times and be successful. Tannehill has to have a strong running game to really like bolster his numbers as a quarterback. Whereas Carson Wentz can be that guy that throws 30 times a game and like has success. I mean, obviously it's preferable to not have to even worry about that because like you have these quarterbacks that are your 30 plus like throw a game quarterbacks, like your Patty Mahomes, your Kyler Murray's, your Tom Brady's, But you have these guys that are like they have the ability to do it, but they're not going to be consistent with it, and that's where Carson Wentz really is. And then Tannehill is like the guy that just can't do it because he'll throw 4 interceptions in a game when he does that.
All right, I think you're a little low on Tannehill, but that's fine. And we can close out.
If I would listen to this at the beginning of the year and I had said that exact thing and just heard myself say that, I'd be like, yeah, man, you're really low on Tannehill. But watching him this year it's been disappointing. I mean, for gosh sakes, the Titans lost to the Jets and the Jaguars.
Yeah, he's looked really disjointed with Julio too. Like
Or
that
the Texans, I think. I can't remember who they lost to, but they've
that,
been terrible.
that trade looks so shitty in retrospect. That, like he just has no rapport with Julio, and AJ Brown's hurt. Like I feel like the Titans could fade down the stretch and get the wild card instead of the division. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility the Colts just take the division. I mean, I don't think. I think that both of those teams have put themselves into a position right now where it's very hard for them to screw it up, like to get into the postseason. But it's all about like, can you limp into the postseason and then hope to God your guys get back in time to play,
Yeah.
or at least for the Titans. The Colts aren't necessarily that way.
Packers are a lock. Bucks are a lock. Cards are probably gonna win. Cowboys are probably gonna win. Then for wild card, I'm thinking Rams, Eagles, and maybe Niners or Washington. It's some team that's just gonna get raffle stomped in the first round.
You know, the Eagles. So the Eagles are 6-7. The Vikings are right there as well. I think obviously the Rams are a lock for it. They're 2 games up on every other team that's going for the wild card. I honestly think like the Washington football team takes 1 win off Dallas in the next 3 weeks. They might be there. I haven't looked at Philly's schedule, but I'm almost sure that they have back-to-back-to-back NFC East games. Yeah, they have a bye this week, right?
The Eagles do, yes.
Yeah, because I think next week they play like the Giants. Next week they play the Cowboys, and the week after that they play the Giants. Then they play the Washington football team, I believe. But I don't know. I don't see the Eagles winning against the football team. Honestly, I think they're a better team. And the Giants are just a joke, though.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are like a reasonably big threat, honestly. But this show's run really long, so I'm going to call it here. And Aaron, you were great this week. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. You know, it has to run long when you're too lazy to put out the episodes every week, right?
Yeah. Speaking of too lazy, why don't you tell Cameron to set his fucking lineup so I can record these Friday night instead of having to wait. Like
I'll start sending him a message every week.
Yeah, you're gonna have to set one of those like automated reminders. Just send him a text every day, because I'm like, you know how dumb these you know how dumb it is to do this show. Like literally like Friday night at midnight or like Friday at 11:30 p.m. and it's like, all right, I want to record TWIF, and I'm like looking through all the teams and like half of the league hasn't set the roster. How the fuck am I supposed to shadow box the games? Like, give me a break. It's been Wally and Wiley. Easy.